Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me today on Human Being with Dr. Susan. I am Susan Hendrich, your host. Today is special. We are going to be looking at something you might not have thought about recently, and that is letting go. There is a moment most of us reach eventually where you're holding on to something that is no longer holding you. A role, a belief, a relationship. There's lots of things that we find ourselves always holding on to that are no longer serving us. Identity you worked hard to build, and yet your hands stay closed even though you know it's time to let go, because letting go is rarely about the thing itself. It's about what we think will happen after we release it. Today, we're talking about the quiet courage of letting go. Not the Instagram version, not the motivational poster, the real version of letting go, the one that feels like standing on the edge of something and realizing the next step requires empty hands. First, let's talk about the physics of holding on. Human beings are wired to hold on. The brain prefers the known, even when the known is painful. Psychologists call this the status quo bias. Economists call it loss aversion. And Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky demonstrated something striking in their research on decision making. Losses feel about twice as powerful psychologically as gains. In other words, the pain of losing $100 feels stronger than the pleasure of gaining $100. This matters because letting go always feels like a loss in the moment, even when it is actually a gain. You might be letting go of a draining responsibility, a role that no longer fits, an argument you keep replaying, a version of yourself that was built for survival, but not for growth. But the brain still categorizes the act as loss, which means the resistance you feel is not weakness, it's neurobiology. Your brain is trying to protect you 24/7. The problem is that protection can become confinement. Let's talk about the backpack theory. Imagine for a moment you are hiking on a mountain with your friend Chris Stano and Gary Rickey. Oh my gosh, my buddies. And at the base of this trail where you're going on the mountain hiking, someone hands you a backpack. And inside this backpack are things that will help you climb, like discipline, achievement, perfectionism, hyper-responsibility, control. At the beginning of your climb up the mountain, these tools work. They help you move faster. They help you outperform. They help you survive. But here's the catch. That same backpack that helped you climb the first mile becomes heavy at mile 10. And if you never stop to look inside it, you keep carrying tools that are no longer necessary. Many successful people are walking around with backpacks filled with things that once served them, but now slow them down. The habit of fixing everything, the need to be the responsible one, the belief that rest must be earned. I had a boss once who said, Susan's going to be gone next week. She's taking a well-earned rest. And something about that never quite sat right. The belief that rest must be earned. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning discipline. It means auditing the backpack. As the philosopher William James once wrote, wisdom is learning what to overlook. Sometimes growth is not about adding more, it's about removing weight. One of the first places we learn to hold on is not in the mind, it's in the body. Stress leaves fingerprints in muscle. Shoulders rise, your jaw tenses, tightens, your breath becomes shallow. What's your signal? What's your tell? That stress is leaving fingerprints on your muscle. Often we don't even notice that it's happening. The bodily stress, we're quietly bracing ourselves for problems that have already passed. Neuroscience research shows the nervous system is constantly scanning for threat. Right now, your nervous system is scanning for threat. And when it perceives one, even subtle emotional stress, the body shifts into protection mode. Muscles contract, breathing shortens, your attention narrows. The remarkable thing is that the body can also be the fastest way to let go. When you consciously drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and take a slow breath, you send a signal back to your nervous system that the threat has passed. The body releases first, and the mind often follows. Sometimes letting go is not a dramatic life decision. Sometimes it's simply noticing where you're holding tension and allowing the body to soften its grip. I remember learning to ride a bike in the driveway at my house in Chatham, here in Delaware. My dad was jogging beside me, one hand steady on my banana bike seat, streamers fluttering from the handlebars. My pigtails were bouncing. I'm moving along. My striped tube socks are pulled all the way up my knees. I was terrified one moment, gripping the handlebars, certain I would fall. And then suddenly I was moving on my own. I didn't even realize that my dad had let go of the seat until I was flying on my own. The rush was immediate. Freedom, speed, competence, arriving all at once. Maybe a little terror. Letting go often feels like that moment, like lifting your hands on a roller coaster after the first drop. The instant where fear dissolves and flips into exhilaration. You know that feeling. It's like standing at the edge of the ocean the first time you go to the beach in a year, and realizing how vast the ocean is and how small your grip on things has always been. The release comes first, and then freedom arrives. There's a quiet moment in the classic TV special Frosty the Snowman. It's my favorite. It captures something essential about letting go. At the end, as the weather warms, Frosty the Snowman's body begins to melt. And the little girl, Karen, is heartbroken. She starts to cry because she thinks she's losing him forever. And Frosty, smiling the way only a snowman can, says gently, "Don't you cry. I'll be back again someday." It's a simple line, but it carries a profound idea. Not everything we release is truly gone. Some things come back in another season. Some relationships return in different forms. Some parts of ourselves disappear for a while and then reappear when the time is right. Some joys are temporary by design. That last walk on the boardwalk for the season. The lesson of that scene in Frosty is not just about loss, it's about trust. Trusting that letting go does not always mean the end of the story. Sometimes it simply means the next winter is still ahead. There's a reason that song, Let It Go, from the Frozen series resonated with so many people when it came out. I'm sorry, parents. I know I'm triggering a trauma right now. But on the surface, Let It Go, the song, is a power ballad sung by Elsa as she runs away from the kingdom and finally stops hiding from who she is. But psychologically, that moment is about something deeper. The release of the persona she built to survive. For most of her life, Elsa had been told to contain herself, control it, hide it, don't let anyone see it. So she builds an identity around restraint, perfect composure, perfect distance, perfect self-control. And then in one moment on a mountain, she stops trying to manage everyone else's comfort. She releases the role. The line that captures it is simple. That perfect girl is gone. That moment lands because most adults recognize it. Many of us have built a version of ourselves that worked at one point in life. The responsible one, the strong one, the agreeable one, the fixer. And those identities help us to belong. But sometimes growth requires exactly what Elsa does in that scene. Stepping into the unknown and discovering that the thing we feared releasing is actually the thing that allows us to become fully ourselves. In other words, let it go is not just about abandoning something. It's about no longer shrinking to fit the version of you that other people needed you to be. That's heavy. The control illusion. One of the hardest things to release is control. If you know me, you know that I struggle to release control. Control feels safe. If we hold on tightly enough, we believe outcomes will be okay and obey. But research in psychology consistently shows that humans dramatically overestimate their influence on complex systems. Hear me out. I'm not trying to bring depression here. Ellen Langer at Harvard described this phenomenon as the illusion of control. If you've ever turned your rally cap at a Phillies game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. People behave as if they can influence outcomes that are largely random or shaped by countless variables. Workplace outcomes, other people's reactions, long-term career trajectories. Control helps with effort. It does not guarantee results, which means some of the tension many of us carry is the byproduct of trying to manage things that are never ours to manage. Other people's opinions, other people's growth, other people's readiness. Letting go is not giving up responsibility. It's recognizing the boundary between influence and ownership. Your effort belongs to you. The outcome often does not. Here's where we get into the identity trap. Letting go becomes most difficult when the thing we're releasing is tied to identity. I'm the reliable one. I'm the fixer. I'm the high performer. I'm the captain. I'm the one who keeps everything together. Those identities can build remarkable careers. They can also create invisible prisons. How do you exonerate yourself from a prison you didn't even realize you'd walked knowingly into? Because once people start recognizing you for a particular role, you start recognizing yourself that way too. Psychologists call this identity fusion. The role and the person become inseparable. I am a father, a mother. I am a process engineer. I am the party kid who is always ready to go out. So letting go of this role feels like losing yourself. But identity is supposed to evolve. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Notice the wording, become, not maintain. When I was in high school, Tammy Ayers, Karen Gorley, Kristen Ritzinger, my besties, they all worked at Happy Harry's. Now Walgreens. It'll always be Happy Harry's to me. And they wore these blue jackets. And Brent Applebaum, even, I think he became like a assistant manager. We were in high school. I was bedazzled. I would walk into the store and I would see them wearing these uniforms of cool. And I would say, oh man, how can I get that jacket and be cool and work at Happy Harry's? But we don't always get to work at Happy Harry's. We get another uniform. And if we can let go of what we thought we were supposed to be and take on what's right there in front of us, that letting go marks the moment where identity expands, not where it disappears. Here's a confession story that I almost took out of this episode because I'm embarrassed to tell it, but I think it's important. And if it helps one person with a let go, it's worth it. The rest of you can laugh at me. Okay, so I'm in high school and I'm going to try out for cheerleading because I'm born to be a cheerleader. Yay! I'm always, a very positive person and I love to get people excited about whatever it is we're cheering for. I'm thinking this can happen. I'm pretty athletic, but I don't know if I can do all those flips. But I'm going to try out for it. I'm going to make it. And my identity is going to be to become a cheerleader. So I try out. I did my absolute best. And Lee Melson was there. I loved her. And I saw her smiling at me. And she was so encouraging, but she also made no promises. And guess what? I didn't make the cheerleading squad. I thought, well, I'll make JV. No problem. I'll start out there. I'll pay my dues. And nope, I didn't even make JV. I was devastated for about 12 hours because my identity over the past few weeks getting ready for this moment was built around the fact that I was going to be a cheerleader and have a uniform and be out on the football field and do all the things. Didn't make it. What I didn't realize that writing was not finished yet for my chapter, and just over to the other side of the gymnasium was a volleyball court. And that became the place I belonged. I still got to be friends with cheerleaders, hang out. I loved going to the football games and watching Gary throw the ball and I was just as excited about being a part of that experience, but I was meant to play volleyball. And I got to be the captain there, and we got to go to state championships there. But if I hadn't let go of this vision of myself becoming a cheerleader, I would never been ready for the thing that was right in front of me all along. There, I told you my scary story. Now, your turn. What have you had to let go of that's made you a better person and you didn't even realize it? Because in the moment, it was so devastating. One of the quiet paradoxes of parenting is that the job is designed to end. From the moment a child is born, the work begins. Tying shoes, packing lunches, answering questions 50 times, steadying bikes, calming fears. For years, child needs you for almost everything. And then slowly, almost without noticing, the direction changes. They start doing things on their own. They solve problems without calling. They make decisions that no longer run through you first. A parent's task is not to build a permanent dependence, it's to build capability. From an evolutionary standpoint, that's essential if we're going to make it. To raise someone strong enough, confident enough, and grounded enough that one day they do not need you in the same way they once did. That moment can feel bittersweet. Pride and loss arrive at the same time. But that's the design. Tammy, you and me, I know it. And you know what? We turned out all right, didn't we? We're still awesome. That moment of letting go when the child doesn't need you anymore, that can feel bittersweet. But that is, again, by design. Parenting at its best is a long act of letting go in stages. Not because the bond disappears, but because love is expressed through preparing someone to stand on their own. When children leave home, many parents are surprised by how disorienting the first phase of the empty nest can feel. For years, often decades, daily life has been structured around caregiving, schedules, conversations, carpools, decisions. Every identity is wrapped up in the parenting act, and it's organized around the needs of the child. When that structure suddenly changes, the mind and nervous system experience a kind of role disruption. Who am I? Researchers sometimes refer to this as role exit in sociology. When a major life role ends, people must renegotiate who they are without it. Parents might notice several things happening at once. First, identity shifts. Many parents have spent years being the driver, the planner, the problem solver, the surgeon, the advocate, the emotional anchor. When the child no longer needs those things every day, the question emerges quietly: who am I now? Second, after identity shift, is loss of routine. School calendars, practices, activities, sleepovers, shared meals provided predictable rhythm. I feel lucky that growing up, my mom had dinner on the table pretty much the same time every night. There was a table, there was a dinner, and it was in a rhythm. Didn't realize how fortunate I was. In fact, I was irritated half the time because I didn't want to have to show up and come in from playing outside or stopping my ever-expanding circle outside the home. But when that rhythm disappears, the day can feel strangely open and unfamiliar. After the loss of routine, third comes a change in purpose. Humans derive meaning from contributing to others. Parenting provides a constant sense of usefulness. And without that immediate demand, some parents feel temporarily untethered. Fourth and finally, emotional distance, and that feels unnatural at first. The brain and the body are used to proximity. A child living elsewhere interrupts patterns that were reinforced for years. My friend from Vanguard, Tammy Gantz, her daughter went off to college this year in Texas, and I watched as she shifted her identity in such a beautiful way, and she made time to go visit and be there for Parents' Weekend and savor the moments when her daughter comes home. But still, her identity as a parent all the while is shifting. None of this means something is wrong. In fact, studies on empty nest transitions show that after the adjustment period, many parents experience increased well-being. I know my parents were glad to get me out of the house. Renewed relationships and greater freedom. I'm kidding, Mom. I know you like when I come home. The early struggle often reflects a simple truth. Parenting is not just something people do. Over time, it becomes part of who they believe they are. And like any major identity transition, it takes time to release one role and step into the next chapter. So come with me and visit for a moment my junk drawer, an archaeological dig. You know you have a problem letting go when your junk drawer has expired coupons from 3 presidential administrations. At some point, it stops being it's a Freudian thing because I am dealing with my junk drawer and I'm struggling to let go. So I'm tangling up the word and saying drunk. Yeah, because that's what it feels like when I try to make sense of it. This archaeological site. Bed Bath & Beyond coupons. If you find one in your house, you'll remember me and know what I'm talking about. identity of, I might need that coupon, or we might go to that show, or I might wear that dress again. There's an email version of a junk drawer. You know where letting go goes to die? In your inbox. People say, let it go. Meanwhile, you have 4,832 emails you're emotionally monitoring, not responding to, not deleting, just supervising in your inbox. The identity. Letting go is hard because sometimes the thing we need to release is a personality trait we've been mastering for 30 years. Hi, I'm Susan. I'm the responsible one. At some point, the universe gently suggests maybe try being the well-rested one for a while. In the economics of attention, there's another reason why letting go matters. Attention is a finite resource. And neuroscience suggests the brain can actively manage only a limited number of priorities at once. And yet, many of us carry mental tabs that never close. Are you a close every tab after you use it person? Or do you have multiple tabs open at any time? Old arguments, unfinished expectations, lingering resentments, unresolved comparisons. Every one of those tabs consumes cognitive bandwidth. Psychologists studying rumination have found that repetitive thinking about unresolved situations increases stress hormones and reduces problem-solving ability. There is power in letting that go. So many tabs, K-Town, I hear you. Which means holding on can quietly tax the mind, even when you're not thinking about it. Letting go is not just emotional hygiene, it's cognitive optimization. Closing the tab restores processing power. What tabs do you need to close? Here's the paradox. The moment you release something, space appears. Space invites possibility. But many people interpret space as danger. An empty schedule can feel like failure or unpopularity. An unresolved relationship can feel like rejection. A pause in momentum can feel like loss of relevance. Yet space is where new patterns form. Every forest fire, destructive as it appears, clears the underbrush that allows new growth. I was living in Florida when Hurricane Andrew came through, and not 90 miles from where the most devastating damage was done. And watching those communities, those individuals, those families build back stronger was incredibly inspiring after days and days of walking around with bottles of water trying to find people to help. That community came back stronger, more capable, and invigorated because that space allowed a new pattern to form. Every musician understands silence as part of the composition. Letting go is not erasing the music. It's making room for the next note. The philosopher Lao Tzu said, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." So here are 5 questions for you to reveal when it's time to release. If you want to know something is ready to be let go, ask yourself these 5 questions. First, does this still serve the future I want? Not the past that shaped me, the future I want. When it comes to stuff, I've been getting really good at letting go and trying to lead a bit of a more minimalist lifestyle. The power of a camera. So I've got this ticket to the Billy Joel concert on Sawgrass Parkway from 1986. Do I need that ticket, or can I take a picture of it and let it go? Out the door it goes. Number 2, am I holding on to this because it helps or because it's familiar? Familiarity often disguises itself as necessity. Hoarders surround themselves with familiarity, believing sometimes that those things are necessity. No, it's just safety. Number 3, would I choose this again today? Would I buy that pair of jeans again today in its current condition? If the answer is no, then baby, let it go. It's data. Number 4, what is the cost of continuing to carry it? Energy, time, attention, opportunity. And last question to ask yourself to decide if it's time to let something go. Who might I become if I set this down? Sometimes the most honest answer to that question is, I don't know. But that uncertainty is the doorway. Eckhart Tolle said, sometimes letting things go is an act of far greater power than defending or hanging on. A useful reframe that positions letting go as strength rather than surrender. One of the most beautiful rituals of letting go happens quietly in many churches each year. I got to participate this year and every year. At Easter, the dried palm branches from the previous year's Palm Sunday are gathered and burned. The ashes are saved. And months later, as the cycle continues, those ashes are used to mark foreheads on Ash Wednesday. The same palms that once celebrated triumph become the ashes that remind us of humility. It's a ritual about cycles, about release, about the idea that some things must be transformed before they can return in a new form. Ashes to ashes. I think about that sometimes when I notice the small ways we hold on. For example, I recently realized that I've been carrying some items for the grave honoring my Aunt Jill, who passed away in August of 2025. I've been carrying those items in the trunk of my car. They're intended to be brought to her gravesite. I go and visit her gravesite often, but I haven't brought myself to take those items out of the trunk of my car and place them at her grave. This little arrangement meant to mark the moment we remembered her. It's been there far longer than it was meant to be, not because I forgot, but because some part of me is not ready to let it go. Rituals help with that. They give shape to the moment when we say, this mattered, this was loved, this person served a purpose, but now they can change form. Burning the palms doesn't erase what they meant. It prepares them to become something else, something greater. Sometimes letting go simply means choosing the moment when we're ready to allow the transformation to happen. My mom called me one day and was so excited. She's reading this book called The Fly Lady, How to Get Your House Completely Organized, Top to Bottom. And she said, Susabelle, we are going to do a 27 fling boogie right now. And I said, what are you even talking about? Well, in the organizing system created by Marla Silly, also known as the Fly Lady, she came up with this concept called the 27 fling boogie. It's a decluttering ritual. And the rule is simple. You walk through your house with a trash bag empty, and you find 27 items to throw away. And when you finish, you stop. And that number is intentional because it's big enough to make progress, but small enough that it feels doable. And by the way, a paper clip can count as one of your 27 things to fling. Fly Lady teaches that clutter is rarely solved by massive cleaning marathons. It's solved through small, repeatable bursts of letting go. The boogie part is meant to make it playful. And many of her followers literally turn on music and move quickly through the house, tossing things out. I do it. And I go to Tom and I'm saying, Tom, it's time to do a 27 fling boogie. But I know that if I can get 5 things on his list, that's progress. Letting go is in small, incremental, micro releases. The exercise works psychologically because it lowers the emotional resistance to letting go. It makes it a muscle, a habit. Instead of debating every object, you focus on reaching the number. 27 decisions, 27 releases, done. For many people, the practice becomes symbolic. It's a short ritual that reminds you that you don't have to solve everything today. You just have to let go of a little more than yesterday. And as we look outside here in Wilmington, Delaware, and the spring is teasing us 1 minute and then fleeing the next, you know that feeling is coming where you're going to want to do, what do we call it? Spring cleaning, letting go. Whatever your ritual is, across cultures, wisdom traditions describe 3 ways of relating to difficulty. They call it the ant, the willow, and the river. The ant persists. You knock over its little anthill, it'll just keep going and rebuild it. You put a stick in front of it, it'll go around it. The willow bends, not breaks. The river flows. I'm going to talk about water in a minute. Persistence matters. Resilience matters. But sometimes wisdom is not pushing harder. Sometimes wisdom is recognizing that the obstacle is asking you to change direction instead of banging your head into it over and over again. The river doesn't defeat the rock. It moves around it. Letting go is not surrender. It's strategic movement forward. Water, the universal solvent of letting go. There's a reason why human beings return to water when something inside them needs to be released. We stand at the ocean when life becomes too large to hold. We sit beside rivers when decisions weigh on us. There's a rock at the Brandywine Creek across from the Brandywine Zoo that I used to go sit on either after school, after work, early in the morning. Whenever I needed to make a big decision, I would sit on that rock, watch the river flow by, almost like it was reminding me that decisions take you forward. We take long showers after difficult days. Water does something to the mind. Chemistry calls water the universal solvent. Thanks, Daddy-O. It dissolves more substances than any other liquid on Earth because of its polarity and its ability to surround and separate molecules. Eventually, everything will succumb to water. In simple terms, water has an unusual talent for loosening bonds. Doing the dishes after a big party, you know how water loosens the bonds. The same metaphor applies to the emotional life. When we hold tightly to something, an outcome, an identity, a resentment, we create a rigid bond in the mind. The grip becomes habitual. The story hardens. The emotion crystallizes. You imprison yourself to that person or thing that you're not letting go of. Letting go requires something that can soften the structure. And water models exactly how. Water doesn't shatter rock with force. Water persists. A river doesn't argue with the mountain. It just moves around it. Over time, the canyon appears. This is one of the quiet truths about release. Most letting go is not dramatic. It is gradual. It is erosion rather than explosion. Not with a bang, but a whimper. A thought loosens, a narrative weakens, a certainty dissolves. That boyfriend or girlfriend that you thought you could never live without Suddenly you're not checking your phone 15 times a day to see if they have reached out. And slowly the landscape changes. Water also demonstrates another principle of release, adaptability. Pour water into a cup and it becomes the cup, the shape. Pour it into a river and it becomes part of the river. That is why the beach is healing, Kelly. That and the beautiful negative ions of the salt air. But that release and the vastness of the ocean, which is ever present and yet ever changing. The ocean, no matter how many times you visited it, it's never the same. No one stands in the same river twice. Lao Tzu again wrote, "Nothing in the world is softer and weaker than water, yet nothing is better at overcoming the hard and strong." The lesson is not about strength through pressure. It's about strength through non-resistance. You feel that in your body, just let it go. When we refuse to release something that's already completed its purpose in our lives, we become rigid. The mind locks into defense. Energy is spent maintaining the structure. Water shows us another path. It moves, adjusts, and yields when necessary. Even on the molecular level, water is constantly forming and breaking tiny bonds with the molecules all around it. Hydrogen bonds assemble and dissolve in trillionths of a second. The stability of water comes because of this constant release, not despite it. In other words, flexibility is not the absence of structure. It's the willingness to reform structure continuously. Human lives work much the same way. Roles change, relationships evolve, companies change logo, versions of ourselves expire. And when we allow the bonds to dissolve naturally, something remarkable happens. Energy returns, clarity returns, movement returns. Think about what happens after rain. The air feels lighter, dust settles, the ground softens. The landscape becomes workable again. Letting go often produces the same effect internally. It clears the mental atmosphere. Your resentment dissolves. The argument fades. The identity that once felt necessary loosens its grip, and suddenly new paths appear where everything once felt stuck. That's why so many cultures associate water with renewal, baptisms, ritual washing, sacred rivers, holy water. Across centuries and continents, people have understood intuitively what chemistry explains scientifically. Water breaks things apart so that new arrangements can form. Let your arms stretch out and feel that. Letting go works the same way. You release the old configuration, not because it was wrong, but because the work is finished. The river keeps moving, the canyon deepens, and the person who emerges downstream is not the same person who stepped into the current. Because sometimes the most powerful force for change isn't pressure, it's the quiet persistence of something willing to flow forward. Here's the Bruce Lee quote that fits perfectly with water and letting go. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. If you put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. This line comes from a 1971 interview with Bruce Lee on the Pierre Berton show, and later became one of his most quoted expressions of his philosophy. Form creates rigidity. Rigidity resists change. Water survives because it adapts. Bruce Lee wasn't just talking about martial arts. He was describing a mindset. Release fixed identity, fixed expectations, fixed responses. And when you stop clinging to a specific shape, you gain the freedom to flow. Letting go removes unnecessary rigidity so strength can move. I had an identity as a fixer for a long time, and I thought that meant I was strong and noble and capable, valuable. All those things were true, but when you become the person who can untangle tension, organize chaos, and move things forward, you get promotions, you get phone calls, you feel useful and important. And for a long time, I believed it was part of who I was. What I didn't realize was that I had quietly fused my value with that role. So when I was not fixing something, I felt unnecessary. If someone else solved the problem, I felt oddly displaced. It was like usefulness had become the proof of my belonging. Letting go of that identity felt risky. If I stopped fixing everything, who would I be? Would people still come to me? Would I still matter? And over time, I realized something subtle but important. Being the fixer had helped me build many things in life. But at some point, the role had started running me instead of the other way around. So letting go didn't mean I stopped helping people. It meant I stopped assuming that every problem was mine to solve. And in the space that opened up, something better emerged. Curiosity, partnership, and the quiet confidence that not everything needed to be held together by my hands. So if you want to experiment with letting go this week, try a simple practice. Take 10 minutes and write 3 lists. Piece of paper, 3 columns. List 1, what am I carrying? Roles, worries, expectations, unfinished arguments. List 2 in the center column, what still belongs to me? Things that matter, things that align with who I want to become. And list number 3, what I release. Not forever, just for now. And sometimes the act of writing something down is the first signal to the brain that it can stop gripping it. Because there's a quiet truth about freedom. Freedom is rarely the result of acquiring more. It is usually the result of needing less. Less approval, less certainty, less control over things that were never ours to control. Never ours in the first place. When the grip loosens, energy returns. Clarity returns, possibility returns. Letting go is not losing something, it's regaining access to yourself. I dig that. So here's a question for you for this week. If you're with me right now, write this in the chat. What are you still holding on to that has already finished its work in your life? You don't have to write the literal term. You don't have to write the full story, just a symbolic word. What are you holding on to that has finished its work and service to you in your life? Not because it failed, but because it did its job. Growth often looks like addition, but the most elegant form of growth is subtraction. The backpack gets lighter, the climb becomes clearer, and the version of you that continues up the mountain has empty hands ready for what comes next. What are you holding on to, and what do you need to let go of? Even if you don't write something to me right now, just the thought that you're working on identifying what you're holding on to makes me proud. And maybe you don't even do it consciously. The beauty of latent learning is that once you get an idea that your subconscious mind considers valuable, your brain starts working on it without your conscious knowledge. So I got in there. Ha ha. Okay, so my call to action. If this episode resonated with you, I challenge you to just reflect on what you can take away, what you can let go of. Kelly, I support you in letting go of that. That person that has a grip on you. Remember the story of the snake that bites you in the forest. And instead of tending to the wound and removing the venom before you die, you spend all of your time flailing your arms, running after the snake to tell it why it was rude and unkind to have bitten you. Focus on the healing and the moving forward. Whoopee. Cancer fear. It's so hard to let go of that and live now. Because your brain is not convinced that it's safe to let go of that fear. In fact, your brain thinks you'd be a fool to let go of that fear. But what if you could live with the fear, live in spite of the fear, live forward because of the fear? Who do you need to reach out to and let them know that it's okay to let go? Permission to release something they've been carrying for too long. Because the quality of your decisions improves when you're honest about what you're optimizing for. Most people say they want one thing and make decisions that serve another. That values conflict, cognitive dissonance, it eats away at you. On the label, I say I'm a kind, reliable, God-fearing, whatever you define yourself as. And then you find yourself saying something rude to a loved one or cursing the very God that you rely on to get you through hard times. That's part of being human. And don't forget, it's all about the repair. We don't get it right the first time, any of us. Doctors go into practice, not perfect. But the gap between your stated priority and your actual behavior is where most unhappiness lives. That's the cracks where toxicity seeps in. And I love what you're saying, letting go of toxicity. What a relief that can bring. Wash the wound. Let the water carry you forward. Letting go closes the gap. And that is where a different kind of life can begin. What if you could have a different kind of life? What if that life that you feel trapped in right now is just on the other side of that pain? And all you need to reach that other side is to let go of the thing that's too big for you to carry through this narrow passageway to the future you're meant to have. Letting go often can be felt in your abdominal muscles. Right now, if you've ever listened to Dr. Wayne Dyer, I loved him. Dr. Wayne Dyer often talked about softening the belly. Realizing that you are breathing from the top of your chest and not from the bottom of your belly. Soften your belly and breathe in the cool, refreshing air and let go of the breath. There's a breathing technique, my yogis friends will know this, where you breathe in and you hold, it's box breathing. You breathe in for 4 counts, 2, 3, 4, and hold 2, 3, 4, and let go 2, 3, 4, and then hold 2, 3, 4. That box breathing opportunity not only slows down your physical breath, but it gives your body conscious permission to hold and then release and let go. If there is one thing you can do today, right now, to improve your ability to let go, it's paying attention to your breathing. And on the exhale of each of your breaths, give permission for the sadness to go, the shame to dissolve, the guilt to reside, and move forward. Your exhaling is a constant opportunity all day long, every day, to remember that it's okay to let go. Can you say that to yourself about something? It's okay to let go. If this episode resonated with you, I hope you would share it with someone who might need it, or just tell them about your letting go. The more we do that as humans, the more vulnerable we can be to let people know that we've been holding on to something and that we release it, the freer we become. You know, we've talked about forgiveness. Forgiveness is the greatest power that you hold when it comes to another person, because everybody around you is slogging around, flailing and making mistakes and forgetting who they are, forgetting who you are. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself to let go of that which is chaining you down. So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one question. What is it that you almost know you are ready to let go, but you haven't gotten there yet? Maybe you're listening to this episode today as a chance to know that it's time to let go. That's why I called this engagement human being. Being, becoming, tuning in, fine-tuning, calibrating, letting go, blowing it, and starting all over again. We get a chance every day with the new sun that rises. Because sometimes the most powerful grip in life isn't in holding on. It's having the courage to let go. I'm grateful that you joined me today. I feel a little bit lighter after our chat, and I hope you do too. I am Susan Hendrich. This is Human Being with Dr. Susan, and I'm going to play you out today with the theme song that I wrote for this show, because if you listen to the lyrics, you'll hear that it's an awful lot about letting go. Let's do it.
Yeah, going, yeah. Human being, forward go, on your path inside you know. Human being, face the sun, take your chances, flow as one. Human being, who you are, meant to be, you're going far. Choose your journey, find your flow, light from inside, now you know.
So there's more of it on my YouTube channel, and I'd love for you to subscribe. I feel excited about the thought of having ongoing conversations with you. And now I'm going to ask you a last question, and it's a fun one to send you on your way for the day. What is your letting go song? Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. A Sky Full of Stars by Coldplay. What is your song that allows you to rise up, as Andra Day would say, to shake it off, as Taylor Swift might say, to be unstoppable? For me, it's Led Zeppelin, The Ocean. It's always about water for me. What is your song about letting go? I will see you next Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, right here on Sandcastle Radio, America's hottest online variety and music station. Human Being with Dr. Susan. Let it go. I'll see you next time.
Yeah.